You might even think that wealth is about cars, mansions, or travel. But no one tells you that there is a type of wealth that gives you access to experiences that challenge everything you believe. And that one almost drove me crazy. I'm not talking about luxury. I'm talking about something that doesn't appear in financial magazines or channels. Something you can't find on Google. There is a substance hidden in the mountains of Nepal that causes visions, alters the perception of time, bends the space inside your mind, and throws you into a state that seems more dream than reality. And it is harvested in one of the most dangerous and ancient rituals that still exist on the planet. Few people know that this hallucinogenic honey actually exists. Even fewer know how to get to it. It is not sold. It is not shipped. It cannot be bought in a glass jar with a pretty label. You need to go to him. And before that, you need money, a lot of money. Not to pay for the substance, but to pay the invisible price it exacts. Time, risk, silence, access. I had to open doors I never imagined. I was introduced to people who are not on any social network, speak forgotten dialects, and live hanging from ropes attached to 100-meter cliffs. They climb giant hives with their bare hands, at the risk of being stung to death, just to collect golden nectar that, when in contact with their tongue, transforms reality. And that's exactly what I went looking for. Not because I'm adventurous, not because I'm curious, but because after becoming rich, I realized that money no longer had any taste, and I needed to discover what else existed after wealth. Some will say it's crazy, others that it is ego. But none of that matters now. What matters is what happened when that honey touched my mouth. And before that, what I needed to do to get there. This is a story you won't find on any personal development channel. It's a journey that started with dollar signs and ended with a question that still haunts me. And it all started the moment I decided to cross the world for an impossible taste. I had everything. Money in the account, freedom of time, access to the most exclusive places in the world. But at some point, I can't even say when, that stopped being enough. First-class flights have lost their luster. Five-star hotels began to look like copies of each other. I needed something that I couldn't buy with a card. Something that wasn't offered in ads or suggested by algorithms. I started hearing whispers at private dinners, among people who don't like being filmed. People who speak quietly even when they are alone. Someone mentioned a honey that opened portals. Another said he saw his own birth after trying a spoon. They talked about a substance that was not sold, that did not have a commercial name, that did not pass through laboratories or carry labels. It just was. And it was hidden somewhere remote in the Himalayas, protected by chasms, legends, and giant bees. They said it was harvested by men who risked their lives to extract this nectar in ancient rituals, hanging from rudimentary ropes, guided by signs that only they understand. It was hallucinogenic honey, called by some red honey, for others, crazy honey. They said I could make you see with your eyes closed, that time melted in your mouth, that some came back different, others didn't return. And that got me. I didn't want to try it just out of curiosity. It was something deeper, obscure, almost as if a part of me already knew what it tasted like, even though I'd never come close. I started researching, but everything was vague, disjointed, shrouded in myths and contradictions. And that only increased my desire. It was a silent obsession, a hunger that was not filled with anything I had ever experienced. Because deep down I knew this was a reserved experience, not because of elitism, but because the path to it required more than courage. It required detachment from the predictable, and most importantly, it required that you had already crossed all other limits before, because nobody starts with that kind of thing. You only get there after you've had everything. Have you ever heard of this honey? Or does this seem like something from another world? I thought that being rich, everything would be easy. After all, money has always opened doors, always solved things. One click, one reservation, one helicopter, one digital signature. But this trip began to prove, in the first kilometers, that not all access is purchased. There are experiences that money doesn't facilitate. It just lets you know that they exist. And then he abandons you. The journey began with an absurd plane ticket, business class, of course. But the last comfortable thing about this story was that reclining seat and the wine served with a smile. After landing in Kathmandu, my world began to dissolve into dust, noise, and a strange feeling that I didn't belong there. Luxury has lost its meaning. Drivers spoke languages I didn't understand. Traffic signs meant nothing. Time seemed to pass differently. And me too. We took a dirt road for hours, passing through villages where the idea of a success mentality was limited to planting, harvesting, and not dying in winter. Nothing there resembled the world of productivity, profitable businesses, the millionaire routine. It was another code, another logic. A local guide met us with a serious expression, his eyes burning with silence. He didn't welcome me. He just handed over a backpack, a thick coat, and said, "From here, you carry everything." Literally. 14 kilometers on foot, uphill. Thin air, biting wind, trails that looked like leftover loose stones. And there I was, the rich man, stumbling, sweating, shaking, trying to keep my balance on paths that didn't forgive mistakes. Every turn felt like a challenge. Each step, a negotiation with gravity. The legs felt heavy. The head was buzzing. I thought about going back every hour, but I didn't go back. At night, we slept in shallow, unheated caves, surrounded by sounds I had never heard in my life. A crack, a hiss, a distant scream. None of that mattered to them. The hunters were used to it. I am not. And that's when the most surreal part began. The ritual. Before the harvest, there were low prayers, drawings made with stones, smoke from burning herbs, and absolute silence. Honey was not just a product. It was a spirit, a risk. And there was a strange respect for it, as if it were something that could lash out if offended. The climb took place at dawn. I saw men hanging from handmade ropes, swinging in the void, collecting giant honeycombs from the hillsides, surrounded by gigantic bees that looked like something out of a nightmare. One of them was stung in the face. It swelled at the same time. It continued. None of them used protection. It was as if pain was part of the transaction. The oldest of them handed me a piece of honeycomb, with his dirt-stained hands. He looked deep into my eyes but said nothing. It didn't even need to. That cost sweat, blood, ancestry. It wasn't a tasting. It was a crossing. And no matter how rich I was nobody there. Just another man trying to prove a taste that the world doesn't recognize, surrounded by risks that don't enter the personal finance spreadsheet. And it consumed me inside. The conflict of having left the security of my high-performance mentality to throw myself into a universe where nothing is controllable, where wealth is measured in resistance, and where every spoonful of honey can cost your own judgment. Would you dare to climb those cliffs for a few drops of honey? Have you ever experienced a situation where no amount of money made a difference? When I put that spoon in my mouth, it wasn't just sweet. It was as if I had bitten into the very fabric of time. The flavor made no sense. First came a dense, almost bitter sweetness, then something metallic, as if I had swallowed liquid light. The honey ran down my throat, and for a second I thought nothing would happen. But then, the world sank. Literally. The floor didn't give way. I sank. I felt my body vibrate as if I was being scanned from the inside, cell by cell. The surrounding landscape, the mountains, the men beside me, the sky above, Everything began to distort, as if I were watching reality through a wet glass. The voices disappeared. Silence became sound, a serious, deep, pulsating sound, like the sound of a cave breathing. My arms became too light, then too heavy. I tried to remember who I was, but that concept no longer made sense. Name, age, profession, none of that mattered. It was just one wave after another of something that seemed to be understanding, but it could also be crazy. If you're watching this right now, take a deep breath, because I'm going to try to describe something that even I don't quite understand. And if this type of experience gives you the slightest shiver, leave a like now. Because what you're going to hear next, no one else has the courage to tell you. Up there, in the middle of the void, trapped between the mountains and the sky, I saw shapes. I don't know if they were visions, delusions, or parts of my mind that had never been accessed. A faceless woman offered me another spoon. A door floated over the abyss. A sound repeated my name in a language that doesn't exist. And behind it all, a feeling impossible to explain. Time had stopped, but not like a broken watch. It was as if time had given up on moving forward. I felt like I was in two places at once, and none of them were the present. For a few seconds, or hours, I don't know, I felt like I wouldn't come back. That spoon had been a portal, and that I was now part of something that could no longer be undone. I thought about the decisions that led me there. I thought if all my millionaire mentality had just been a bridge to that moment. And the answer that came was not an answer. It was a sound, a silence, a silent scream inside my chest. It scared me. Very scared. Not an ordinary fear. It was a primitive fear which made the heart beat too fast, as if it was trying to escape its own body. But at the same time, there was ecstasy, an absurd delivery. As if I finally understood something, or almost understood. Because every time the answer seemed to form, it slipped through the fingers of my thinking. The colors vibrated beyond logic. The sky turned into a liquid sea. The mountain breathed. I felt my skin dissolve and scatter into the air like cosmic dust. I found myself outside. It wasn't a hallucination. It was total depersonalization. I was the place. I was the wind. I was the fear and the will. And it was nothing, too. At some point, someone pulled me, a firm hand on my shoulder. I came back with a snap, like someone waking up from a dream they were dreaming within another. The spoon was still in my hand, but now it felt like it had the weight of an ancient stone. I was shaking, not from the cold. Of impact, it was liberating or terrifying. To this day, I don't know. I can't tell if that was a spiritual revelation or a mental breakdown. Maybe both, maybe none. What I know is that honey, it wasn't just honey. He was a mirror that does not reflect the face, but what is behind the eyes. And not everyone is prepared to see what's there. Do you think this was an enlightenment or a fall into the mental abyss? If you could live an experience like this, even at risk, would you agree? I came back different. I don't know how to explain. Something inside me changed. But along with that, something was lost. It wasn't immediate. There was no click, no clear epiphany, no conclusion. Just a kind of internal displacement. A space that was once occupied by ambition was now silent. And it wasn't peace. It was strange. The first days after returning were surreal. The world, which previously revolved around extreme productivity, maximum performance, the search for high performance, seemed to operate at a different speed. My millionaire habits no longer made sense. The optimized routine that previously gave me pleasure began to feel like theater. And I was on stage, but without knowing my line. Time seemed broken. I woke up and didn't remember what was real. Some dreams lasted days. Other times I was sure I had already lived that moment. Again, the successful mind, trained for results, now got stuck on silly details. A loud sound made me jump. A smell made me cry. People close to me said I looked weird, but I couldn't explain it. I didn't even want to. The honey did more than alter my senses in that moment. It left cracks, silent cracks that began to grow as the days passed. The truth is that I no longer trusted my own perception. There were moments when I wondered if all this had really happened. And if it happened, what did he take from me? Memories were confused. Conversations from the past appeared in flashes. Distorted memories. I looked at old photos and didn't recognize the man there, but not in the philosophical sense of change. It was something more literal. I didn't remember how I thought before, as if the structure of my mind had been reorganized, but not all the pieces went back into place. I started writing down phrases that appeared out of nowhere. I felt like they were coming from somewhere that wasn't exactly mine. Some made sense. Others looked like codes. One day I wrote, "You exchanged understanding for presence." I don't know what it means until now. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. The thing is, after that spoonful of honey, I couldn't see the world with the same eyes anymore. And that includes money, the status, the financial freedom I sought so much, not because they lost value, but because now everything seemed to be contaminated by a question that I couldn't silence. Is it really worth knowing what no one knows? The price was not high. The price was silent. And this is the most dangerous type, because no one notices that you paid. Neither do you. Until it was. The paranoia started slowly. A look on the street that seemed to follow me. A noise in the middle of the night that always came back at the same time. The constant feeling of being watched. From the inside. With every business meeting, every casual conversation, I felt disconnected. As if he were acting. I answered emails, signed contracts, smiled for cameras. But it all seemed like a simulation. As if reality had become an extension of what I saw there. And what I saw there never left me. The mind, which had always been my greatest weapon, was now a minefield. Overthinking activated visual memories I didn't remember having. Closing your eyes was dangerous. Sometimes I saw the abyss, sometimes just the eyeless face of the woman that appeared during the experience. She didn't speak, just looked, as if he knew I would come back different and she would be waiting. Waiting for what? I have no idea. Maybe the moment I realize what I've really lost. Maybe that moment is coming now. Or maybe it never arrives. Do you think there is a price for accessing certain levels of consciousness? Have you ever experienced something that transformed you and messed you up at the same time? If you had all the money in the world, would you go after it? Would you cross oceans, climb cliffs, face killer bees, and plunge into a state where not even your own mind is trustworthy? Would you risk your sanity for something that no one understands, that can't even be accurately described? I went, and I still don't know if I would go back. Maybe yes, maybe no. I still don't know what I brought from there, nor what I left behind. I just know that I came back with the certainty that there are levels of experience that the world does not prepare anyone to live. The type of experience that is not taught in success mindset courses, nor appears behind the scenes of those who build wealth. That was something else. Another plan. The curious thing is that it all started with the same elements as always. Ambition, curiosity, power of choice. Those triggers that move those who live in the logic of extreme productivity, profitable businesses, building wealth from scratch. And it was precisely this financial freedom, This possibility of going where few others can, that put me on the path to the unexpected. It wasn't about making money. It was about figuring out what else money could open up. But not everything that opens, it is possible to close again. You who are there, watching, may have spent your life hearing phrases like, think like a millionaire, develop the habits of rich people, create your own freedom. But no one tells you what's next. No one talks about the emptiness that appears when all goals become too small, or about the silent desire to experience something that simply cannot be explained. Perhaps this is what differentiates those who live on autopilot from those who go beyond limits. Or maybe it's just insanity disguised as a search for meaning. The truth is, since I came back, I find myself thinking about it every day. I went after a spoonful of honey that they say transforms. But what it did was implode certainties, reorganize memories, and leave me with a permanent doubt. Was it real? Or was it just delirium intoxicated by the idea of exclusivity? It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that the question remained. And perhaps that question is worth more than all the answers money could buy. And you? How far would you go for an experience that no one else had? Comment below. I want to know how far your mind would be able to go if it wasn't limited by routine, fear, or logic. Leave a like if this video made you think about possibilities you had never considered. Subscribe to the channel if you want to continue crossing these limits between the real and the impossible with me. Because if there's one thing this journey has shown me, it's that not all wealth fits in a bank account. Some only exist when you close your eyes. And he has the courage to open what is on the other side.